We've met their need for food assistance, but we've met it in a way that maintains their dignity.
Welcome to episode 50 of the LorainCounty.com Insights podcast. I'm your host, Ed Skimmon. I'm proud to begin with a thank you to the LorainCounty.com champion sponsors who support this and many community initiatives. Lorain County Community College, Emerge Inc., Lorain County JVS, Community Foundation of Lorain County, and WOBL Radio. Today we're talking with Julie Chase-Morefield, President and CEO of Second Harvest Food Bank of North Central Ohio. Join us as Julie talks about the organization's mission and programs, the partnerships that help address food insecurity in the region, and the impact of their work across Lorain, Erie, Huron, and Crawford counties. She also shares insights into funding, advocacy efforts, future goals like urban agriculture, and her personal journey leading to this essential community resource. What stands out to me about Second Harvest is how strategic they are. Not just distributing food, but building systems, partnerships, and solutions. It's not just about hunger relief, it's about long-term impact. Their work is a reminder that food security is fundamental to a thriving community. Here is my conversation with Julie Chase-Morefield.
I am Julie Chase-Morefield, and I serve as the President and CEO of the Second Harvest Food Bank of North Central Ohio.
Welcome, Julie. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. Can you provide an overview of Second Harvest Food Bank and your role with the organization?
I've been with Second Harvest for about 20 years, and Second Harvest serves Lorain, Erie, Huron, and Crawford counties, and we provide food out of the Nordson Food Distribution Center to food pantries, hot meal programs, shelters, children's programs, senior programs, all over the area, about 130 programs in all. Probably what most people are familiar with is when they see a food pantry distributing food. By and large, most of that food originated through Second Harvest through a number of different sources, whether it's federal, state, donated, purchased food that comes out of our facility, delivered on our trucks. But we also do a number of different programs. We have a senior food box program that's federally funded that provides food to low-income seniors every month. We work with a number of different children's programs, including a number of different school districts. So we have about 14 school districts that we work with, especially here in Lorain County. So those could be in-school food pantries, or they could be a mobile pantry that's actually at the school. We do it at Elyria City Schools with the Ely Stadium. So a lot of different breadth in terms of how we serve.
And how much has that expanded in the last few years, or has it been this way for a long time?
Before COVID, the pandemic really expanded our services pretty dramatically in terms of who we serve. And that came down some in the years since. So 21, 22, we saw decreases in the need at food pantries. But starting in late 23 through 24, we saw a large increase in the number of people accessing services at food pantries. So unfortunately, we're still at pretty high levels in terms of the need in the community.
Where are the food pantries located? I'm assuming they're spread out amongst the counties you serve?
We have food pantries all over. Every county that we serve, every community has a food pantry. A large number of our partners are faith-based, so churches. But we also have, we have the school systems that we work with, and then we have other partners that we've started to work with, what we would consider to be non-traditional partners, and a lot of those are in the food as medicine realm. So we have a food pantry at Cleveland Clinic Avon Hospital. In partnership with the hospital, we work with some of the federally qualified health centers, so Family Health Services in Erie and Huron counties. So all sorts of different locations, but our goal is really to be very person-centered. That's one of our core values, is being person-centered. And so we want to make sure that we're accessible to people where they need help. It shouldn't be something where you have to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get food assistance, because then you're using resources, you're using gas, you're using time that you don't have. So ideally, we want it to be close to the person, ideally within 5 miles of where they are, that they can get help.
How does Second Harvest work impact the broader community beyond just those that receive your food assistance?
I think food security is important to all of us. It creates that stability for families, for seniors, that allows them to think of other things. And there's a lot of challenges that go along. Generally, food insecurity is not something that exists in isolation. It usually exists along with other issues. We've done hunger studies around this, whether it's related to not being able to get health care or pay for medicine, being able to pay for housing, being able to pay for transportation. Those issues come along together. And so if you can alleviate the issue of food security and create more stability, then it can help to create a good snowball effect where good things start to happen when you create stability.
What is something people don't normally know about Second Harvest that you'd want them to know?
We talk a lot about the misunderstandings between what a food bank is and what a food pantry is. A lot of times that's equated together, and what we do is very different. It's on a much larger scale. We have a 41,000 square foot facility. We have a fleet of refrigerated trucks. We have paid staff. This is a big operation that we run, and we're connected with food banks all over the country. And oftentimes we hear that there's just a misunderstanding of what we do, that we're the direct distributor to a family. And it's like, and that's just different. The other thing I would say is that the level of work that we do around advocacy and policy, both on the state and federal level, we receive about half of our food originates through state and federal dollars. And so that's a lot of work that we do. We're talking with legislators at the local, state, federal level and helping them to understand the issue of hunger, but also advocating on issues like SNAP that are incredibly important to the families that we serve.
Can you break down the different funding streams that keep Second Harvest operating?
So there's two different budgets that we look at. One is operating and one is where does our food come from. All together, that makes up our budget. But from the operating side, the majority of our funding actually is from philanthropy, either individual donors or grant funding through foundation gifts, corporate donations. We do fundraising campaigns like Harvest for Hunger. We have annual events that we do. But that's where most of our funding comes from. We do receive some funding to store and distribute federal and state foods, but it's not a significant part of our budget. It's generally less than 10% and even smaller now since we've had funding cuts. On the food side, it's a little bit different. So about 15% of our food now we purchase, about 35% is donated, and the other half is made up between state foods and then federal foods. So the funding cuts that we've experienced on the federal level, it's going to impact us significantly going into our next fiscal year.
How do you define success at Second Harvest? What are the metrics and outcomes that are most important to you and your team?
I mentioned already that we're person-centered. Our goal is that we want to meet our neighbor where they are. We want to create an experience for our neighbor where we've met their need for food assistance, but we've met it in a way that maintains their dignity.
What do you see as the biggest food security related challenge specific to Lorain County?
One, SNAP in general. If there are cuts to SNAP that happen, that's going to undermine food security from a baseline level of just not having those dollars to spend at the grocery stores, which then creates a ripple effect with the grocery stores that they're also not going to be receiving that revenue. And so a lot of the large stores, major retailers, I think that they'll be able to withstand that. I think the challenge comes in is that there's a lot of small grocery stores in Lorain County that I think could be really negatively impacted with a cut to SNAP. And then if those stores were to close, we talk about food deserts, ability to have food access, that creates a lot of food access issues. And especially around things like fresh foods and protein and foods we want people to eat. And that creates a lot of challenges. But I also think there's some opportunities in Lorain County. We've been working with the city of Lorain and Lorain County Public Health on Food Forward Lorain, which is a project that we started following our Child Hunger Summit in 2019 to create a food policy council where we wanted to look at food access in the city of Lorain because that's where we saw the highest need in the community and also challenges around food access and being able to get especially fresh produce. And we've been working with Solidarity Urban Farm in Lorain. We've purchased food directly through their program, which goes back into the city. We've been working with the WIC program. We've been working with the Produce Pantry at Lorain County Community Action Agency. So trying to think about how we can encourage urban farming and urban agriculture in the city and create more access to food. We have a USDA Urban Agriculture Innovation Planning Grant in the city. So work's being done right now on where urban agriculture could exist in the city and what are the opportunities within the city. So things like greenhouses, controlled environment agriculture, vertical farming, exciting things that can bring both food access and potentially jobs, economic development. Let's repurpose land that's not being utilized in the city for other wonderful purposes.
You've mentioned a number already, but who are some of the other partners that you work with to have the impact you wish to have?
We will work with anybody who's willing to work with us. We're very open. We've moved away from the idea that a food pantry needs to exist at a church, although those are wonderful partners. We also have to think of all the ways in which we can reach people. And we've talked about healthcare. There's a lot of studies and a lot of work that's being done that talks about the intersection between health and food insecurity, and that if you're not eating a healthy diet or having ready, reliable access to food, that's going to negatively impact your health. And thinking in those terms and helping to connect food insecurity in different ways allows us to work with lots of partners, which has been amazing. School systems are wonderful. We've worked a long time with a lot of the schools, and that's been a really wonderful partnership too.
How do you balance the immediate needs of food distribution with the long-term strategies for addressing food insecurity?
It's challenging. We look at a couple of different things. This goes back to some visioning work that we've done organizationally, is that we want to continue to meet our neighbors' needs for food on an immediate level, because that has to be met now, but also looking at how we can partner with other organizations. We've talked about things like housing and transportation and jobs and all of those things. Like, how can we connect with other organizations? And there's been some really great examples. The Global Food Bank has one with the resource center that they turned their former facility into a resource center. Someone can come in and get food, but then there's also other services available. So thinking about how you can tie back to someone who's helping with tuition assistance so that you can go back to school and you can maybe finish that degree. Or if you're having challenges with transportation, how can we connect you with people who can assist with that? And just thinking about how you can move people down a continuum and get them additional help so that eventually they're not in a food pantry line anymore. That's always the goal. Fortunately, in this area, we have so many amazing organizations. So we can stay in the lane that we're supposed to be in. We can provide food assistance, but we can look at all these great organizations to partner with and help connect people. That's the way we see our role going in the future. But a lot of times food pantries are the thing that brings a family in the door. And then there's an opportunity to have a conversation.
Let's switch over and talk a little bit about you. What's your background and what led you to your current role?
I am a proud BGSU Falcon, and I have a communications degree from Bowling Green. I was always interested in nonprofit, even when I was in high school, although food banks were very early on in their existence then, so I didn't know that this was even a possibility. But I always really wanted to work in a field where I could help people and I could give back. My mom experienced food insecurity as a child, and that played a role in wanting to be able to help people and connect people. Unlike a lot of the families that we serve, a single mom, 3 kids. Her dad passed away when she was young, and just trying to make ends meet. And it's challenging. But at that time, there weren't food pantries. There weren't places to go. There were government food commodities being handed out, standing in a line, get your butter and cheese and those kinds of things. And so to be able to think about families like hers and be able to help them and do it in a way that meets their needs, that allows them to maintain a level of dignity, to eat food that they want to eat. My mom always talked about, as a kid, I didn't totally get this, but she always talked about eating rice and sugar with milk on it for dinner. And I thought, that sounds pretty good to me. So you think about, how do we create scenarios where we have a lot of different types of families, people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. You want to have the kind of foods that someone wants to eat and that's appropriate for their family, and to make them feel like there's always those things that your mom makes that feels like home. And you want to be able to have that for the families that we serve as well.
In the time you've been with Second Harvest, I think you said 20 years, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
Honestly, the building that we're sitting in right now, it was game changing. And not everybody was on board with it when we decided to build this building, because the building that we were in wasn't that old, but we couldn't expand and we had to think bigger. There was a lot of community partners and people who believed in us, especially the Nordson Corporation. Cecilia Render, she truly believed in the work that we were doing. And we said that we knew that if we moved into this building, we would have the ability to distribute up to 13, 14 million pounds of food. And during the pandemic, we actually hit that number. I remember reaching out to Cecilia and saying, we did what we said we were going to do. It was just like a moment where you realized that if we hadn't done that, nobody knew the pandemic was coming. But if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have been able to have the response that we did during the pandemic.
Going forward, what would you still like to accomplish?
I talked about urban agriculture. I really, truly believe that the work that we do with farmers is critically important, and we want to keep providing food assistance and doing the work that we do. But however, especially in this region, that I think we can lift up farmers and growers. We can tell their story and partner with them. That makes all of us more food secure, whether you're low income or not. We all need food, and the climate's changing. And we have a tremendous opportunity in this area to continue to grow and to continue to provide the kind of food that we need in this region and in the country.
Outside of work, what are your hobbies and interests, and how do they help recharge you?
I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, so most of my time is spent with them. My daughter's a softball player. She's a catcher, so I spend a lot of time on the softball field. My son is a boat nerd, so we spend a lot of time on the lake, following his passions too.
Finally, where can people get more information about Second Harvest and connect with you?
Everything's always available on our website at secondharvestfoodbank.org, and we're also on social media, so Facebook, especially when it comes to finding out where our food distributions are. Facebook's a great place to find that information.
Thank you, Julie, for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the LorainCounty.com Insights Podcast. Each episode, we share conversations with the people shaping life in Lorain County, from business and government to education, nonprofits, healthcare, and entertainment. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can also visit LorainCounty.com to discover local events, volunteer opportunities, and more community resources. If you know someone who's making a difference in Lorain County, send us a note at podcast@LorainCounty.com. We would love to share their story and insights. Special thanks to our producer, Leah Gerke, and to you for listening. This has been the LorainCounty.com Insights Podcast, conversations with the people shaping Lorain County.